Well, hello again, everybody. Welcome back to the Huddle, the Review.com's weekly high school sports show. I'm Executive Editor Rob Toder, joined as always by Sports Editor Mike Brown. And Mike, let's talk about the Northeastern Buckeye Conference in Week 7. The big showdown for first place, or at least the share of first place, goes to the winner, and that's the West Branch Warriors playing host to the Louisville Leopards. Both teams come in 5-1 overall and 3-0 in the league. What's your take on this game?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's in Beloit, so maybe that makes it a little bit closer. Obviously, Louisville's been there and done that so many times, Rob. You know, they've got to be a heavy favorite in this game, but West Branch is playing really well, and I'm pretty sure their first-team defense hasn't given up a touchdown since week 1 of the season, either week 1 or week 2. It's been a long time. So who knows this year? I mean, I have to say West Branch has probably been the biggest surprise this year of the NBC season. I mean, they've really had a good year. They got a nice air game. They've got a great running game, and their defense is playing as well as they played in probably 10 years. Yeah. But then you have Louisville. You got Jake Adams threw for over 300 yards last week. You know, Louisville has a great air game. Razul Young at the running back spots had a great year. I mean, Louisville's got everything, and Louisville has numbers compared to the other teams, and we all know that plays out. They have depth where nobody else has depth, and a lot of times that can make a big difference in games too. But who knows? Should be a great crowd Friday night. It's that goes back when I think about the great West Branch Louisville games back in the '90s. Oh my goodness, some of those classic games they had. So who knows what's going to happen Friday night in Beloit?
Yeah, obviously the difference in a lot of games comes down to turnovers and penalties and that type of thing, and just sometimes good luck. But also, I think given that Louisville's victories the last couple years have been fairly one-sided against West Branch. I think, don't you think, getting for West Branch especially, get off to a really good start, a quick start, maybe get if they can get, at least score early to give themselves some confidence is going to be a big role in that game.
Oh, absolutely. And traditionally, the last few weeks anyway, West Branch is not, this team has not been a slow, or has been a slow starting team, but when they get the second quarter, they get it rolling. So, you know, they've got, like you said, I think they need a quick start Friday night to give themselves some confidence. And one thing, you know, an amazing stat I looked at with this game, DJ Dota is 2-2 against the Louisville Leopards, which is, he may be the only coach around that I know of that actually has a 500 record against the Louisville Leopards.
Yeah, and that I think plays a role in it too. He knows them now. It's his 5th year at West Branch. He knows that program at Louisville and what their strengths and weaknesses are.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. So, you know, we'll see. It's going to be fun to see how it plays out Friday night. You know, it's what high school football is all about, though. It's going to be a great crowd, 2 teams that are on a roll, great athletes on both sides. It's what you hope for in a football game.
Yeah, I think we should mention Trey Hillier last week against Alliance had a great game for the Warriors.
Yeah, 244 yards, 5 touchdowns. We think that's a school record for rushing touchdowns in a game. You know, I got a chance to see that game for 3 quarters before I had to be in the office. But you know, they run the counter really well at West Branch. They'll run counter right, counter left, and he just slides off that end and does a nice job with that. And then, you know, they mix in the good air game with TJ DeShields, and he's got a lot of weapons this year. They've got 4 or 5 guys that have a lot of catches this year. So they spread the wealth around through the air too.
Yeah, it should be a great ball game. Make sure you check out the review and the Review.com all week for previews on that game, and also the live coverage of that game on the Review.com as well, and Saturday's coverage in the Alliance Review. Let's talk about the Marlington Dukes. They need a win at home against Canton South to stay in the league race and keep their playoff hopes alive. They're 3-3. Canton South comes in 2-4.
Right, and I think this is a perfect game for Marlington coming off back-to-back losses. You know, they get Canton South at home. Canton South, a team that's kind of struggling this year. Marlington plays especially well at home. You know, I know they lost the game 2 weeks ago at home, but you know, I think that's something where they're very comfortable playing at home, and I look for them to bounce back in a big way. You know, you've got the great quarterback in Chris Pennell, which was held down last week against Louisville, and Garrett Floyd, his numbers were down last week too. But those two, you know, they're going to be good, and I look for them to lead the way for the Dukes. And the other thing too, the Dukes have played pretty well on the lines this year. They've done a good job with their interior lines on offense and defense, and I look for them to have a big game Friday night.
Okay, Alliance Aviators go to Carrollton. I think that's a toss-up game as well.
Sure
I think
is.
Alliance playing better of late. They didn't play exceptionally well in the second quarter against West Branch, but of course the Warriors had a lot to do with that. But Alliance playing better, and they're going to Carrollton. I'm sure looking at a Carrollton team that's 2-4 and thinking we've got a legitimate shot to win this.
Right, I'm like you, Rob. I think that's a toss-up game. I was going back and forth with that game. I don't know who's going to win that game. That might be a last possession kind of thing. They both have some talent. Carrollton's got some really nice lines. A lot of their kids that wrestle on their NBC champion wrestling team last year are on those offensive defensive lines. They're very strong on the lines. So, that may not bode well for Alliance, but then Alliance has the best skill, I think, on the field Friday night. So we'll see what wins out, the skill or the brawn on the lines.
Yeah, good matchup there. And also Salem looking to extend their unprecedented almost winning streak to start the season. They haven't been 6-0 for a very long time. We're going to go 7-0, and they should be the prohibitive favorites against a Minerva team that's still looking for their first win.
Right. How about those Salem Quakers? My goodness, 6-0 on the year, and they're steaming toward the playoffs. It's been a while since Salem's been in the playoffs, but Ron Johnson's done a great job with them, and like we talked about, Weingart, the quarterback, and Bezzaretti, and some of their top guys in the backfield. They've done a super job. They've been very consistent week in and week out. Salem has. Either at one time that they were challenged and they didn't have the big numbers offensively, they won the game against Canton South with defense. So they've won games in a lot of different ways, but they've got some nice offensive weapons on that team.
Yeah, I'm impressed with their defense. I mean, you look at some of the yardage totals and point totals that they've held teams down to.
Yeah.
And obviously, a good defense is going to keep you in every ball game.
Right, and you look at how Salem's schedule builds toward the end. Week 9, they have the Louisville Leopards, and Week 10, they have the West Branch Warriors. So between those two teams, there's 10 wins right now. So there's a lot of computer points there at the end if they can get one or two of those games.
Yeah, absolutely. Also looking at the ITCL big game matchup there. Berlin Center, Western Reserve takes on McDonald. Both teams are 4-2 and got victories in their league openers last week.
Right, and I would think when you look down at Western Reserve's schedule, Rob, I think this is a must-win for them if they're going to make the playoffs this year, because I've seen a lot of computer projections which have them just outside the playoffs. It doesn't have them beating McDonald, so if they can get this win Friday night, they're right back in the playoff hunt. If they don't get it, it could be a tough one as far as making the playoffs this year.
That's always a great matchup,
as
you well know.
Oh, my goodness.
And the Sebring Trojans in the ITCL also taking on, they got a tough matchup at home. Jackson Milton, surprisingly, 4-2. A lot of people like the Blue Jays this year. They've done a nice job.
Right, and Sebring finally gets to come home. Sebring only has 4 home games this year, so that's tough with a team that's fairly young in a lot of spots. They've weathered the storm. They're doing the best with what they have, the numbers they have. And they've had a few injuries. They've had to overcome that too. But they get a home game this week, so hopefully there's a comfort level there, and maybe they can get the job done Friday night and get a win. That would be wonderful to see for Sebring.
Also in the ITCL this week, United plays host to South Range. Portage Trail Conference, southeast of Waterloo with a couple of tough assignments. Waterloo takes on Rootstown, who lost in overtime to Southeast last week. Pirates getting their first win of the year, but they've got a tough one at home this week against Mogador, who beat Crestwood by 35 points. That was an impressive score to me.
When I saw that score come in last Friday night, because I thought that would be anybody's game, that tells me the Mogador Wildcats are the real deal again. Because I know how good Crestwood is. Crestwood spanked West Branch, who's 5-1 in their Week 1 game, and then you have Mogador, who just spanked them last week. My goodness, that's a good win for the Mogador Wildcats.
Absolutely. And the St. Thomas Knights got back on the winning trail last week against Trinity, and they are on the road Saturday night against Valley Christian, formerly Youngstown Christian, who's winless. So it looks like the Knights should be looking at their 4th win of the year, and they've got a tough end of the season schedule as well, but they're going to need every win they can get to get that playoff spot.
They are, because they're another one like Western Reserve. You look at the computer projections, and they're right on the bubble. So they probably need to win out, or at least win 3 of their last 4 to have a shot to get in. And they've had a good success the last few years. I realized they didn't make the playoffs last year, but prior to that, they had made it the last 2 or 3 years prior to that. So hopefully, they can win these games down the road and get in the postseason.
Okay. All right, make sure you check out the Alliance Review and the Review.com for previews, as I said, and coverage of all these games and much more. Make sure you check out Pigskin Picks. You can win some great prizes playing in that contest as well. So for Mike Brown, this is Rob Toder. We will talk to you next week.